Hi everyone, happy Tuesday! Today for math, we're going to be using models to add fractions with the denominator 10 and fractions with the denominator 100. Let's do our warm-up. Over or under? Do you think the sum is going to be greater or less than 1 whole? 2 6 plus 3 6. Do you think that's over a whole or less than a whole? So let's think about it. If we do 2 plus 3, that would give us 5 6. And how many 6 equal a whole? 6 6 equal a whole. So 5 6 is going to be less than a whole. What about this one? 2 fourths plus 1 fourth. 2 fourths plus 1 fourth is 3 fourths, and we know 4 fourths equals a whole, so this one is also less than a whole. 1/3 plus 1/3 would give us 2 thirds, and 3 thirds would be a whole, so 2 thirds is also less than a whole. Are all of these going to be less than a whole? 5 eighths plus 4 eighths. What's 5 plus 4? I know 4 plus 4 is 8, so 5 plus 4 is going to give me 9, so 9 eighths. If 8 eighths is equal to 1 whole, 9 eighths is going to be greater than a whole. That was a good little warm-up to get us thinking. Here's your engage question to get you questioning. What do you notice? What do you wonder? I wonder what type of math question they could ask us about this picture. It's a cute little puppy up for adoption. Okay, today's essential question, this is what we're going to be learning about today. We're going to learn how we can use models to add fractions with a denominator 10 and fractions with a denominator 100. Pro tip, this is important. This is super important, especially for adding fractions. Your denominators have to be the same when adding fractions. Especially when you go to 5th grade next year, they're going to give you different denominators. You always have to make a common denominator before you add. Your denominators have to be the same. Here is our question for building understanding. Steve and Jana collected money for an animal shelter. Steve collected 4/10 of their goal, while Jana collected 5/100. How much of their goal did Steve and Jana collect? I'm thinking because it's saying Steve and Jana together, we're probably going to have to add these two fractions together. Here's the question again. What do we notice about our two denominators? Steve collected 4/10. Jana collected 5/100. Are those the same numbers? No, we've got 10 and 100. Since we have two different denominators, we're going to have to make them both the same denominator before we can add. Let's use models to help us add our fractions together. So on your worksheet today, find the page that says Tuesday, adding tenths and hundredths. So right here for Steve, it should have a box with tenths. So go ahead and color in 4/10. This is what Steve collected. So you're coloring in 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 out of 10. This is how much he's collected. Now, if we're going to change that, convert that into hundredths, how many hundredths would be equal to 4/10? So for your next box, you're going to color in again 4 lines down. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4/10 is going to equal 40 hundredths. So you have 10, 20, 30, 40. So 4/10 equal 40 hundredths. And if we check that with multiplication with an equivalent fraction, if you go across, 10 times 10 gives you 100. Since we times the bottom by 10, times the top. What's 4 times 10? 40. So that gives you 40 hundredths. So Steve collected 40 hundredths. It's always easier to turn the smaller denominator to multiply it and make it equivalent to the bigger one. Because remember the girl had a hundredths. So if we turn Steve from tenths to hundredths, now they are both in hundredths. So we have Steve has 40 hundredths. Jana had 5 hundredths. Do you notice now we are using the same denominator? They're both now in hundredths. Steve has 40 hundredths. Jana has 5 hundredths. Since our denominator is the same, we can just add our numerators. What's 40 plus 5? 45. So the total combined together, that how much they've raised for the animal shelter, is 45 hundredths. Steve definitely raised a lot more than Jana, you can tell that. Okay, so now it's time for your practice work. The first question I figured we could do together. So your first one is, let's see here if I can get this to work, 7 tenths plus 25 hundredths. So if you look right here on your paper, you have 7 tenths plus 25 hundredths. So we can shade that in. All right, let me get this pointer going here. Let's shade in 7 tenths. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 tenths, and then we have 25 hundredths. So that would be 10 hundredths, 20, and then 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you had 70 tenths, we need to make these into the same denominator. If I had, 7 tenths, 7 tenths would equal how many hundredths? If I were to change this into hundredths, all you have to do is take 10 and times it by 10. 10 times 10 gives you 100. Whatever you do to the denominator, you have to also do to the numerator. So 7 times 10 gives you 70. So can you imagine that? If these were broken into 10 pieces, it'd be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. So we actually have 70 hundredths plus 25 hundredths. So then all you have to do is add your numerators together. So if you need to, you might want to rewrite it over on the side on your paper. 70 plus 25. Line them up. Add your ones. What's 0 plus 5? 5. 7 plus 2? 7, 8, 9. So 95. So your final answer would be 95 hundredths. Okay? So now you have, let's see here, you have a couple more questions that you are going to do. You have 3 tenths plus 42 hundredths. You can do that one by yourself. 9 tenths plus 3 hundredths. And then just like yesterday, I gave you an extra bonus one for fun. And then on your second page, you have your formative assessment question for today. Mrs. Simonson put 3 tenths cup sugar in her cookie recipe. She added 2/100ths cup salt in her cookie recipe. How much sugar and salt did she use in the cookie recipe? So you're thinking that you have sugar and salt. We have both the ingredients, we're adding them together. But just be careful because this denominator is tenths, this denominator is hundredths. We have to make sure they're both the same denominator before we add them together. Then you have one last question for your summary of learning, a FSA style grid question. Okay, so make sure you complete all this and bring it back to school when you come back next week from quarantine. And I will have another lesson for Wednesday tomorrow. Have a great day.